Hey everyone, this is Austin Schur here with We Write About Music, and today I'm here with Zach Goldfinch. He has just released his debut album titled My Mind Catharsis, and I'm really excited to learn all about it. Zach, thank you so much for coming on today. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. It's really hot over here as it is for you,
Yes,
but
yes.
it's great. Yeah, I'm really thankful for you having me on.
Yeah, man, super happy to have you. It's always better when the music is fantastic, just like yourself. So, I mean, where to start really? I guess we're going to start out with the lyrics. From what
Mhm.
I can tell and from what I've listened to, this record as a whole is really all about getting things off your chest and out into the open, just like you said. So, what was the thought process behind that before you really started making the album?
I think for me, it was. I mean, I started writing them as singles first, so a lot of it came from ideas that I kind of wanted to explore in one way or another, and it wasn't even music at first. It was kind of like a bit of poetry or a bit of like, just scribbling and stuff.
Yeah,
So once I kind of had, three or four, actually probably in this case, I had probably about 25 different ideas. I was realizing that I needed to probably narrow it down. And I thought the best way to do that would be like an album or an EP. But yeah, that's like the main like way.
sure. No, no, no. I totally understand that. It's funny when people put out albums, typically it's like, hey, I'm going to make an album rather than, I have a single here and a single there. Oh, look, I have 10 songs or whatever it is. I have an album now.
Yeah.
So I kind of like that you're going about it a different way, but at the same time, it sort of feels like there is an overarching message of it all. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I try not to be super preachy with my music.
Sure.
It's very hard at the moment, with everything that's going on around the world. But
Yeah.
yeah, I try really hard to not be, like I said, super preachy. But I think the idea of the album has just been, like you said so eloquently, it's about getting things off your chest. And
Yeah.
I think it was a pretty good exploration of different tools for me and how I did that, or different feelings that I was having during the time of writing this album. Like
Sure.
I think the overarching theme for me was actually this idea of home, and where that is, what it feels like, what it looks like, what it tastes like, and from there it was really easy to kind of work the album kind of like backwards, I guess, because you
That
have
makes
the end
sense.
goal and then you can work it backwards.
So how long have you been working on it from start to finish?
Way too long. It's been a long time.
That's okay.
I think it's just gone. I mean, like recording and producing it because I'm doing all that myself.
Right.
Um, that's been, I think, the best part of about 8 months now. On that level, but I think prior to that, I've been working on the album probably for another year,
Wow.
just with like ideas. And yeah, I mean, I released the first single in April as well, so
Yeah.
it's been a long like process, but I think I would do it this way again going forward because I just have so much time to get things right.
That makes sense. And right before we started recording here, you were like, "Oh, I'm in lockdown, so I'm spending a lot of time sleeping. I'm spending a lot of time inside." And I'm actually happy that you brought up the one man band thing because that's something that interests me so much just on a personal level. I always become
Yeah.
so jealous of people that can really wrap their head around an idea and take it from seed, to full flower like yourself. So this isn't necessarily a question, but sort of just the whole package of how do you do it? Like, what got you started in music? What made you want to learn how to produce, and what got you to this point?
I don't really know, to be honest with you, because
Okay,
I grew up, surrounded by music, but none of my family are, super musical.
okay.
Besides maybe my sister.
Oh, sorry, breaking
She
up a little
studied
bit.
music. Yeah, I'm not really sure. Like I said, like I up around music. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I think so.
Can you hear me now?
Mhm.
Cool. I was just saying that yeah, like when I was growing up, I was always around music, so country and folk and old stuff that my dad used to listen to as well. So, but then when it was came time to recording music, I always liked to explore. So I always was sitting down at a piano or a guitar or
Right.
a banjo and just playing around, and I found it super easy to connect all those things. And then when I got into going in and studying music and studying how you do it and put it all together, um, it became a lot easier. Like I feel like I think people think it's a super daunting challenge, and it is. But
Sure.
there are ways that you can kind of like there's like ways that you can like cheat it, so you don't
Okay.
have to be doing. It's not all about the like the recording process. It's more
Yeah.
about for me like the music. I don't really care how it sounds. Like I just
Okay.
care that the songs are done. If that makes sense.
I
Yeah.
understand that. I don't want you to shortchange yourself and be like, "Oh, it's not that hard. It's not that hard," because you're saying that as someone who has gone through this process and has spent, the better part of 2 years to put this thing together. So, I do wanna give you the credit for what you've done so far because it is not an easy task.
Thanks, man. That's really nice of you.
Totally, and, I wanted to talk a little about, your podcast that you host as well. That was something that you mentioned that
Oh
sounds
yeah.
really, really cool, also called Catharsis, or at least part of the album title. Could you sort of break down what you're talking about and what subjects you get into?
Man, it's like a it's I always refer to the podcast as like a Frankenstein's monster. Like there's so much
Okay,
stuff
cool.
there's so much stuff that we go into on there.
Sure.
Think I think the main thing that we like really look into is kind of what it means to be a musician.
Okay.
Um you know from pretty biased standpoints and from the way that people are kind of I like to work with people that are really authentic. So having these people that are on there, it really gave me a chance to look at like different avenues in music that were super real for these people,
Sure.
that I probably don't tap into, because I kind of work in my own stream, and I rarely don't have time to collaborate. So hearing these people was also a chance to like champion these artists as well. But yeah, it's kind of more about like what it means to be a muso, I guess.
Well, do you find that talking to these people has helped you in your own music creation and production, or at least, like, tips and tricks?
Absolutely. I think talking to any musician or creative will
Mhm.
help you in like anything. I mean, I don't even think that's like applicable just to music. I think there's such a dependence on, in Australia particularly, there's a huge dependence on artists doing things for people. Whereas, that's not why we're doing things. It's kind of like we're just releasing music, or we're just, actors, or we just want to create and we want to, experience things.
Sure.
Um, so working with these other artists, it really just drives home that there are other people that are really, really invested in what they're doing. And it's super nice to see because, like I said, working in such a small little box for myself in the last, 6 months, particular in lockdown, it's been nice.
Totally. No, it is nice having conversations with people and not just, having conversations with yourself inside of a room, so I don't blame you
That's
at all.
right.
So, obviously, I wanna keep the focus on this album, but at the same time, as someone that is probably always creating and, is always musically inclined to do something, do you have any idea of what you may wanna do in the future as far as sounds go? Do you wanna experiment? Or is that just a
Yeah.
thought way far in the future?
It's actually really funny. I was talking to my housemate about this probably like last week,
Yeah.
about he's working on an album or an EP at the moment too, and
Oh, nice.
the way that we've been looking into sounds has been really interesting for me because like I've always been super centered on like the folk, country blues
Sure.
sound. Um, but as I've been in producing, it's been really easy into like an indie pop world, which has been super fun as well.
Yeah. So yeah,
So
I
that's
guess
something that I might look into later on.
that's cool. Yeah, I mean, I guess take your time with it, see what happens, and obviously focus on this album rollout first and get the
Yeah,
feedback.
I just think it's like it's one of those things of like, I always want to experiment with my music,
Sure.
and I always want to be able to challenge myself and push myself forward.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. I just think the more I look into doing different things, the more I kind of end up going back to what I'm good at.
That's
And I
okay.
do want to, yeah, and I'll experiment later on. And I actually think it's a good thing because it keeps me in line with what I want my music to be about,
Totally.
irrespective of style and genre.
I think that's kind of the way to go, especially if you're going to put out, say, like a folk album or something along those lines. Let's say, for example, it's a 10-song album and you throw in an indie pop track completely out of left field. Kind of throws off the vibe and the atmosphere of it all. I think that if you were going to experiment with something like that, just put out a single and get the feedback on it. And then if it gets, if that's something, an avenue that you want to keep exploring, make an EP or album. But making an album that jumbles up a little bit of everything is just a little too out of place, in my opinion. But I think you figured that out.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's hard to get the balance of sounds right at the best
Right.
of times,
Totally.
especially when you're working in like one genre. I mean, you listen to it all the time. Like
Yeah.
some artists bring out stuff that's like, like a collection of things, and you go, wow, this would work on like, three or four different albums, not necessarily on this one.
Yeah.
And it's a really good way to learn how to balance your sounds, I think.
I agree. That's why, yeah, you always have to keep listening and taking notes and
That's
demos and
it.
this and that and whatever it is. But I can want to keep focusing a little bit on this one man band process, mainly because I want to know about the process of how you work. How does it really start for you? Does it start with a lyric that you think up, or an idea, or a bass line that gets thrown in? What is your process?
I don't know. I think it's so dependent on the song, it really is. And um I I have my guitar. I call him Steve. Steve's my guitar, and
Sure.
normally what it
It's great.
normally what happens is I'll pick up Steve most days, probably when I wake up,
Yeah.
and I'll just fiddle around with, I love playing in E flat. So
Okay.
each day I'll play a little bit in E flat, and normally I'll come up with some sort of riff. And um but I think like for this album, it's been looking at, like I said, like I had the idea of what the theme of the album was going to be, and it made it super easy to like kind of put things in place,
Sure.
about what song should go where and how it leads into those things. So I had a guide, and I had like this like I come from theater, so I had this like emotional storytelling journey
Yeah.
that was kind of in place for the album, that I felt had a complete resolution and like kind of broken into three acts. Um, but the process for most of the stuff is sit down, struggle to write anything for 2.5 hours, have a coffee break,
Sure.
go down, and then come back upstairs, and suddenly you're really inspired. It's there's no like method to my madness. It is madness,
Yeah,
like it's absolute
always,
madness,
always.
but yeah, there's no method to it really. It is super depend on the song. I think if I was working on pop album, I would know what to do a little bit better. Like I
Totally.
would know I'm going to sit down and get like this. I'm going to get this groove, or I'm going to get this bass line going. But with this, it's been an absolute nightmare. It really has.
Yeah, I mean, the creativity never comes when you need it to. You're just
Yeah,
wasting your
never.
time thinking and trying, and it never hits. Drink a coffee, go for a walk around the block, and it happens when you least expect it. So I don't
Yeah.
blame you. Have you found that there's one specific thing about the process that you enjoy the most? Whether it be actually like finding that spark or even putting the finishing touches on a song?
I think the most exciting part is the beginning process
Okay,
of writing a song. For me anyway, because I feel like that's obviously something new and creative, and there's a new energy that you can kind of explore. Um, but I do think, there's nothing more finite than putting the finishing touches on a song and
sure.
being like, I don't have to touch that again. I don't have
That's
to
true.
stress about this song. But yeah, I think all of it's super fun. But I think the starting process, mostly because you go, I don't know if I've heard this, and if I haven't heard this, I don't know if other people have. And
Sure.
it's a really cool way to like get into a creative space when you're struggling, because then you go, well, if no one's heard this, I have free range. Like I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
I can tackle this, you know, um, diatonically, non-diatonically, complex rhythms, however I want to do it. Um, yeah, I think that's the most exciting part for sure.
See, the beginning part seems like it would be the most stressful to me. Like, I want to start something, but I don't know where to start. What do I do? And then you're just, the stress builds on it or builds on itself. So I
I
guess it
think for
depends
me,
on
it's
the
like,
person.
yeah, I think as well, like I'm a super anxious person normally too.
Sure.
So I think I'm mostly, more anxious of actually like pressing the release button. And like it's scary to write new stuff because you have to trust your process.
Of
And
course.
um, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, I feel like I'm always good up until I have to press the button that says, release the music. Because then I'm like, oh fuck. Well, now oh, sorry, I don't know if I can swear. I don't
You can do
know.
whatever you
I don't
want.
know if I'm allowed to. I was just like, oh no, I don't know. Sorry, I should have asked.
Okay. No, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, it's just stressful because then I have to think more about. Yeah, I just have to think more about what's going into the album than like, or how people
Exactly.
are gonna see it more than. Yeah, but yeah,
I think as long as you enjoyed it, making it, and you had fun in the process, you have to take yourself a little bit easier. Try not to take those opinions of those that are listening. I know it's tough because, you spend so much time and you want them to love it as much as you love it. But take it with a grain of salt, I suppose.
yeah, for sure.
Um,
No, I agree with that. Yeah, it's
yeah.
it's also like working in a social media space too.
Oh yeah.
Like
Instant feedback.
everything's totally, and everything that you do is like. I mean, I'm pretty lucky because I think most of the people that I have on Instagram are my friends, like really
Sure.
good friends, and they're always super supportive of me. And they'll always tell me like, this works or this doesn't.
Right.
So I don't have to worry about that. It's just more people that I don't know, that are
Yeah.
listening, which is like the difficulties of being a songwriter and releasing music, because that's part of the process.
I
But
get
also
that.
it's not for them anyway. It's for me. Like I'm writing the music for me. And at the end of the
Exactly.
day, like I always understand that. And when I release it,
Right.
it will be, it's not on me anymore. It's on them.
I fully agree, and I think because the stories that you're telling are so personal to yourself, not only is the music beautiful, but also the message. And as someone that is getting the message out and obviously, like, you're reliving these traumas or experiences of whatever they may be, I can only assume that it's gonna make you feel better taking what's in your head and putting it onto paper.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that's it. That's a really fair. Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. I was saying to someone else that like whenever I write a song, I feel like these weights lift off my shoulder,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's super therapeutic because like it's not always things that I feel super open talking about with my friends. Um, and in Australia, there's like a super like I don't know. I feel this might be getting into more like a social thing, but I think in Australia there's a real emphasis on dudes being like dudes, and not being super open and stuff. So I think
Yeah.
um, being able to being able to like express myself through music has been super rewarding.
You know what? That is a stereotype of all men all over the world. You are not alone.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that obviously the internet has helped a little bit to bridge that gap of men and guys having feelings because like we're humans. But at the same
Yeah, for
time,
sure.
it's a lot different when it's like I'm sorry. I think there's a difference between like going to therapy and talking to a therapist rather than like, I'm gonna take this pain and I'm gonna make it into a beautiful song for the world to hear.
Absolutely.
And people take that and they're like, they're either okay with it or they're not okay with it. But I don't think that they realize that 99% of the artists that they listen to are doing the same exact thing. Whether they,
Yeah,
it's an
it's
upbeat, funky vibe, but you're not listening to the lyrics and what it's actually about.
the thing with like musicians, I think, is that we're all in some way, like we're all, I think, a little bit anxious, like
Sure.
because we're in a world where we have to be so open with our feelings and our emotions,
Yeah,
and there's a lot of feedback that comes your way. There's a
totally.
lot of feedback, and that's great. Like I love feedback. I'm a huge fan of it. I crave it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that like being in that world comes with
Mhm.
those difficulties.
Yep.
So everyone's in kind of the same boat, I think.
I fully agree. And yeah, and it's never gonna get easier. It really isn't because in order to write and get music out there, you have to live your life and get these experiences, and they may not always be positive. So I just say
That's right.
keep
Yeah.
keep doing what you're doing, and you're doing a great job while you're doing it. Don't let anyone give you shit or tell you you're doing a bad job. So
Thanks, man.
yeah,
Thank you.
man, of course, of course. I've only got a couple more questions for you at this point. I do want to know though, because we're a music blog and we're always trying to, recommend local artists or even just, whatever's on your playlist. What are you enjoying these days? Is there any friends that you can shout out who are also doing big things?
Man, I feel like anyone who listens to my podcast knows how much I love Jacob Collier. Love him.
Yeah,
Love
great.
him, love him, love him, love him. Love him more than like life itself. He's amazing.
Sure.
But I have to shout like some of the amazing artists that I've been super lucky to work with, like a Madison Varley, who worked on I Call Home with me, Kaylee Garner, who's working on That Funny Feeling with me, which we're releasing on the 22nd. Caitlin Koprovic, Jonathan Nash Daly, all these guys. There, if you haven't heard any of their stuff, you need to go and
I
listen to
will.
them.
I have not, and I
They're
will.
amazing.
That's
They're
awesome.
amazing. Like like Jono is one of is this one eclectic dude who like he's my housemate, and he
Okay.
just loves throwing himself into all these different genres, and it's actually pretty inspiring to see. But yeah, all these everyone that I've ever had the privilege of working with, I cannot champion them enough. I think I sometimes, actually most of the time, think they're more deserving of some of the stuff that I've been very lucky to have in my career so far, because they're like honestly amazing, and they're so haven't been
Sure.
broken by the industry yet. Like
Of course. Like
there's
everyone
nothing that's
else, of
like,
course.
yeah, it's like nothing that's like broken them down just yet. So they're super authentic and real, and it's really awesome to see.
Sure. Well, thank you for the recommendations. I'll definitely make sure to check them all out. Um,
Please.
I have one more question for you at this point. Basically, the question is for the person that is going to discover you from this, and for the person that is going to listen to your music for the first time, what is sort of an opening message that you have for them as they, dive into the album?
I don't know if this is cliche or not, but I think the main message is that it's okay, like, to be you,
Mhm.
and it's okay to have these feelings and insecurities and doubts, and that's what makes us human. Like all of this that I'm looking at in this album, is it's for me. It's my journey, and it's my exploration of my own mental health, and what it's been like for me, particularly in lockdown. Like I think since then, since the lockdowns happened, it's been quite a difficult time for me. But yeah, I think it's just it's just the message of feel your feelings, and it's okay. Like people are going to be there to support you. I think that's the whole idea of this album.
It's not cliche at all. It's 100% true. And I,
Yeah,
uh, I want to thank you so much for just being open and honest about everything that I've asked you. It's been a huge pleasure getting to speak with you, and I really can't wait for the record to be officially out.
mate. Thank you so much for having me. I have enjoyed it. It's very nice to talk openly. You don't get to do it a lot when you're in your room by yourself, because then you just
No,
end up talking to yourself. So it's
right?
nice
That's
to
not healthy. That's not healthy.
it's not, no, it's actually quite confronting when that happens.
Guys.
But yeah, it's nice. Thank you, man.
Thank you. You're very welcome. And for everyone else out there, by the time that this comes out, My Mind Catharsis will be out. Give it a listen, give it a stream, follow along with Zach Goldfinch for everything that is, on the way and in the future. I have only positive feelings about the future for you. Big things are on the way. And I sincerely thank you for taking the time out of your day. I hope you have a great rest of the day as I begin to end my day.
Thank you, man. I like I said, I'm super grateful for your time, and for your authenticity as well in talking to me. It's very nice. So thank you.
You're very welcome. All right, man. Take care. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, buddy.
See ya.